Now, there is no surprise that the European Union absolutely loves to censor. I don't know if they were to censor more than the Soviet Union or Nazi Germany, simply because they don't have the same power that the governments of those countries used to have. But if they were allowed to actually do whatever they wanted, they would definitely censor more. In fact, if you look at some of the speeches that come from the establishment of the European Union, if it were up to them, they would completely abolish private correspondence. Like, they would make it so that two people cannot talk to each other unless they are monitored and recorded. It's pretty fascist stuff. Pretty much on board with what China is doing. Like, they're trying to get there. They're not there yet, but they're doing their best in order to get there. And the problem is, like, they do not have a constitution that guarantees free speech, like in the United States. So, with that in mind, they can make all sorts of laws and regulations, which advocate for social media companies to work hand in hand with the European Union in order to censor what the EU wants, even if the content is absolutely 100% legal. Like, the latest thing that they wanted to censor was the terrorist attack that took place in Germany with a member of a right-wing party that was very Islamophobic. And it turns out that despite the fact that the phobia is completely irrational and unreasonable, a person with a knife that happened to be part of a specific religion attacked them. And the police officer intervened, and the police got stabbed as well. Now, that video went on Twitter, and the European Union demanded that the video gets taken down. Now, I don't understand why, because it wasn't illegal. There wasn't any commentary to it. Like, it's something that actually happened in real life. And you can make the argument, well, you know, like, the faces of the people, like, maybe they don't consent. It's like, okay, well, pixelate the faces, because the video was of public importance. Like, it was newsworthy. But the European Union didn't want that. Another example of what the European Union didn't want was during the start of the Israeli-Palestinian conflict. Like, back then, a lot of Palestinians, they decided to film the horrors that they created, and they were going around shooting civilians, and they would record themselves and then upload it on Twitter. And again, the European Union demanded that those videos get taken down. I don't know why, because it actually helped people sympathize with Israel, because it's like, well, look what's happening to Israeli civilians, right? But the European Union were like, nope, like, even though it's newsworthy, you're not allowed to show it. So these are like footages that are completely legal in most member states. But again, you know, Twitter, an American company, if it wants to keep broadcasting in the European Union, has to abide by these regulations. And as you can see, like, you have this person saying that in our view, X doesn't comply with the DSA in key transparency areas. It misleads users. And this is like the thing that I don't understand. Like, since when is lying illegal? Like, can we hold the press accountable there? Can we go and look back at the way the press handled the pandemic? And every single time they misled people, because now in the future we know better than they did in the past, right? And every single time they misled people, we should find them and shut down the news broadcasts. Oh, we're not going to do that, right? So X misleads users. And take into account that, like, it's a platform, right? Like, anyone can post whatever. It's not that X misleads you because X isn't saying anything. It's like saying the phone company misleads people. And I'm pretty sure it fucking does if you think about it, right? Like, the phone company most definitely misleads some people, but we're not going to find the phone company for doing so. In fact, people from Eastern Europe that lived under the Soviet Union, and the government was actually monitoring people's phone lines, and they were wiretapping phone lines. We now have laws against that shit. Like, we are sick and tired of the government interfering in the private people's communications. Like, you can't have a democracy if people aren't allowed to talk with each other. And yeah, you know, like, sometimes in democracy you do have people that are being misled. So train people, teach people how to recognize when they're being misled. Like, I'm pretty sure if people can be expected to make a loan from the bank, or be expected in order to make a loan to so that they can go to a prestigious university, surely they can also be expected to read shit online and be able to tell if it's misinformation or not. And given in the fact that the community notes on Twitter are pretty decent, I mean, they're not perfect, but they're better than what other social media has, I don't think like the problem is that Twitter misleads people. I think that the problem is you have anti-European Union sentiments going there. And if you look at how much wealth a person that sits his fat ass on the European Union chair and how much money they're getting per month, I can definitely understand why they're very afraid that someone can vote them out of power. So apparently Twitter also fails to provide adequate ad repository and blocks access to data for researchers. It's like, well, why should researchers even have access to it? Like, I'm pretty sure that the European Union created a law that forces social media websites to give access to researchers. But here's my question. Why the fuck doesn't the European Union has its own Twitter? Why does Germany not create its own social media? And the answer to that is also the European Union. Because they created the GDPR, which is the General Data Protection System, and it's so crippling expensive for companies to be able to manage the data in the way the European Commission wants, that they cannot compete with American companies. They cannot compete with Chinese companies. This is why when it comes to social media, you either have China or you have the United States. The European Union does jack shit. The only thing the European Union knows how to do is to regulate. Look at AI. We got AI coming from the United States with OpenAI. We got AI coming from China. And the European Union is the first nation on earth that is creating legislation to regulate the AI. That's all they can do. That's all they're capable of doing. They cannot produce for shit. And the only reason they can't produce is not because they don't have talented people. It's not like there aren't people that know how to do IT in the European Union. No. It's due to the fact that the legislation that they put makes it cripplingly expensive for people to compete with the American companies. So, fuck the researchers. Unironically, I think the European Union should stop regulating so much to the point where it can create its own social media websites and then allow the researchers to research as much as they want. So, apparently Elon Musk responded to this, and he's saying that the European Commission offered X an illegal secret deal. If we quietly censor speech without telling anyone, they would not fine us. The other platforms affected the deal. I think it may be possible. Maybe this is going to be solved in court. It would be interesting if there's a lawsuit over this. But, I am willing to believe it because I saw Brazil doing the same, right? Like they had that judge which also said that he wanted people to be censored, but not to mention that it comes from him, right? And this is what a lot of politicians want. Like they want to launder the censorship through the public platform so that from the perspective of the user, it's like, well, the government doesn't have anything against you, but the private company can do whatever it wants. So it's just that you're breaking TOS from the platform. And this is what we also saw in the past with random content creators just being banned and no reason given. It's like, you're banned, terms of violation. You can appeal, but like, how can you appeal when you actually don't know what you violated? And the appeal gets rejected, and that's it. You're never allowed to come back, and you still don't know what you did wrong. And now I'm starting to think that, well, maybe some governmental organization asked for that person to be censored. I mean, apparently, if Elon Musk is to be believed, this is happening quite often. Like, you get governments going, yeah, we want you to block that guy, but, like, do not say that we are the ones that have encouraged you to do so. Just do it, and we're not going to fine you. And when you look at the requirements that the European Union has for social media platforms, they're batshit insane. Like, it's incredibly expensive to even fit all of the requirements that they have. And if you don't, they fine you. But apparently, if you take the secret deal from behind the scenes, it's like, oh, well, we don't see anything. And I think, like, this actually explains what happened to Parler. If you guys remember, Parler was an upcoming Twitter. At the point it was gaining a lot of traction. Many people were going to Parler. Like, you now had actors, you had business people, you had journalists, like, going to Parler. And it was huge. So what they do is, like, they shut down Parler, claiming that the January 6th protesters were organizing there, when in fact they were actually organizing on Facebook. And Facebook doesn't get shut down. Facebook doesn't get in any type of problems. And when they realize, oh, well, actually, Parler didn't do anything, they're like, oh, oopsie. But by then, it actually lost all traction. By then, it lost the ability to keep momentum. So yeah, it's actually interesting if this is the case. It would be fascinating to see in Court of Justice under discovery to see exactly if the European Union encouraged Twitter to start censoring on its behalf without naming. But again, like the main problem is that the European Union doesn't have a constitution, and if it would, it definitely wouldn't be like the American one that actually codifies the rights of the citizens and says, yeah, no, like you as a European Union citizen, you got the right of free speech, you got the right of freedom of movement, you got the right of, like all that shit. They will never do that, ever, because they're authoritarians. Let me know what you guys think, though, and as usual, I will see you in the comment section. Take care.